Okay, so I'm doing my speech today on Brian Walker's. His main claim was that the designated hitter has a negative effect on baseball. And his three main points supporting his claim were, number one, it messes up and nullifies the strategy of the game, more so bunting. And two, the American League team in the World Series are at a disadvantage. And three, it eliminates player weakness and inflates statistics. My response to his first claim is stating that it messes up the strategy of the game. There's no evidence to back it up. What was used, quote unquote, was bunting. There is hardly any bunting because there is a DH, so the strategy of the game, quote unquote, is eliminated completely. But doing more research, saying that statement is false because looking at the MLB statistics, Delino DeShield, center fielder for the Rangers, is tied for the most sacrificed bunts with 12, and he is in the American League. So saying that the American League doesn't really have as much as the National League, they have 77% bunting that takes place in their games in ratio to the National League. So the American League has 29 different players bunting with a total of 139 bunts. And the National League has 26 players with a total of 180 bunts. So that there is a difference. The National League does have more, but it is not a drastic change like it was stated. And moving on forward, he also added that the American League managers don't have to manage anything outside of pitching changes. So the manager's duties mostly consist of defensive substitutes, defensive shifts. So like the manager is gonna say like, I'm moving shortstop over towards second base because of the person who's batting. Whether you're in the American League or National League, you still have those things to consider. So managers do have to manage a lot. And even so, if it was only pitching changes, pitching is one of the most important aspects of the game. So managing when to take out a pitcher or put in a reliever, etc. is important because you could take game one of the 2018 World Series, for example. National League manager Dave Roberts of the Dodgers threw the game away when he decided to take out the relieving pitcher Baez and bring in another one, Wood. So as a manager, he had to make that choice, and even though it was just something small of a pitching change, it cost the entire game versus changing like the batter or the lineup. So when he pulled out Baez had faced two batters and struck them both out, and then the new pitcher comes in and gives up a home run. So the American League lineup stays the same and hardly changes is what Mr. Walker had stated, but that can go the same for the National League because looking at the postseason lineups, they barely changed at all. And that is according to Bleacher Report. And then my response to his second claim, the statement proposed was the American League teams in the World Series are at a disadvantage. It is a false claim because according to iWeb's list, the American League has 62 World Series wins and the National League falls short with only 51 wins. So if it was that much of a disadvantage, it would affect the outcome to far less victories against the National League. And the response to claim 3, saying that the DH has a negative effect on baseball because it eliminates player weakness, I believe you could see that as not a negative thing, but a positive. If you have a player who could pitch really well but not hit, and there's a player who could hit really well, you're using strategy to have the pitcher pitch only and the batter hit only. So that is strategy and a positive thing going into the game and is not really eliminating or putting any effect on the team. So in conclusion, the three main claims stated do not have evidence to help it, with the statistics showing that the American League has won more World Series, so that defeats the second claim, and then the first claim that it messes up the strategy of the game because bunting is quote unquote non-existent. It is a 77% to 100% ratio, so it still does exist.
I like it when the sports ones come up and the original argument is, presented, and there's a little bit of information, and people go, oh, I don't know, what am I going to say about this? What am I going to say about this? And then the refutation speeches come along and just go, ha, are you kidding me? I got this, I got this, I got this, I got this, and they got a lot of information that they dig out. And I thought you did a very good job on that, picking out those things. The bunting statistical information, for instance, is excellent on that first point. That was the main claim that the advocate used to support their position on that first point, and I think you do a very effective job at demonstrating that this is not a significant difference. You've got some statistical information that shows the frequency with which bunting occurs in the two leagues. You suggest that it's not a significant difference based on the number of players who've attempted it. The American League has more players who've attempted it. The National League has more people who have actually successfully bunted. That just might mean that their legs are shorter or longer. I'm not sure which it is. It's one of those things. But I thought that you had a very good statistic on that. When you make the argument about the American League managers not having responsibility, you would point out that they have a variety of additional responsibilities, positioning the defensive players on the field, making determinations about pitching. You use an example of pitching, a pitching determination to show how important that kind of thing is, that it is not insignificant at all. I think that those are reasonable responses on that. On the lineup issue, I think you probably could have given us a little bit more information about that. It did sound like you were quoting a source on that the lineups haven't substantially changed either for the National League or the American League, which seems to suggest that it's not the designated hitter that is affecting the question of the lineup. On the second point, the only thing that I'm not sure about is your data. When you're comparing the 62 wins versus the 51 wins, I'm assuming that you're talking about World Series, at the actual series, as opposed to the number of games. It's not clear to me. If it's the actual number of World Series, well, the designated hitter rule has only existed since whatever it is, 1973 or something like that. So it would only be appropriate to look at the games since then, or the series since then, because otherwise that statistic is not very representative. If you were this is why it was unclear. I'm trying to figure out how many games you would have played and the number of World Series that have been played since then. Would it have been 103 games, 113 games that you're talking about in the 50 plus years? Maybe that's what you're talking about. It's the actual games as opposed to the World Series. I don't know. That information was unclear. So if it was actually the number of games being played rather than the series, and it's just since that time that the designated hitter came in, that's a really effective statistical piece of information. If it's the other, then it doesn't really mean much. So I don't have any way of assessing that. And then the last point on the player weaknesses, I think it comes down to a value issue. What do you want to see? What's most important here? You still say that there's strategy, and I think that that's a reasonable claim that's going on there. One of the things that you always want to do is you want to compare your information to the other sides. I thought you did a good job of that on the bunting issue, maybe less efficient on that on the later issues, but everything was well organized, easy to follow, and you did cite your sources, so that's good. Thank you.